Professional football in America is a special game, a unique game. Played nowhere else on earth, it is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
I believe it's about character. It's about who you are, what do you stand for, integrity.
The game is about life, and it's about what you have to do to pick yourself up, to make yourself the best you can possibly be.
I got a scholarship to Nebraska. I had a 17-year career with the Vikings.
It is the ups and downs of the game, the turmoil. Those are all parts of life.
It is my duty, I believe, is to get that message out, that you can live with integrity, but you have to have some God in your life to do that.
I've always wanted to be great at everything I've done. I've always been a competitor. I've always showed humility. I'm a team guy.
The values that it teaches you is A, diligence, B, perseverance. There are many more downs than there are ups.
This is such a spectacular game. It's a matter of one's dedication, one's belief in themselves as an individual to achieve greatness.
The game of football has taught me faith, it's taught me commitment, and it's taught me to have a tremendous resolve. And whatever I plan to do, I'm going to get it done.
You never dream, no matter how good you may be, that you'll ever be in the Hall of Fame.
Living with integrity, I certainly, honor the values of the Hall of Fame.
This is an honor bestowed not only on me, but for every teammate that I had. All of these people should be celebrated, not just me. It takes the moment from me to everyone but me.
Honor the heroes of the game.
Preserve its history.
Promote its values.
And celebrate excellence everywhere.
All right. And with that, welcome here to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. We're honored to be with you for our latest installment of our Heart of a Hall of Famer series today, featuring Gold Jacket Willie Lanier. We're honored to have him with us today and excited to hear some of the stories and knowledge and experience that he has to share with us. And I know we're in for a treat today. So this is a program that we hold near and dear to our hearts here at the Hall of Fame, because it speaks to that third point of our mission statement: promote the values. The values we're going to focus on today are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And I know we'll probably get into a few more besides those, but those are our values here at the Hall, and we hold those near and dear, like I stated. So before we get started, we need to thank our teachers, our students, our administrators there in Richmond, Virginia. Thank you for taking the time to open your school doors to us today, and it is much appreciated. We need to thank our folks at Extreme Networks for making this program possible and all the hard work they do behind the scenes as well. So we'll make our intro brief today, but lastly, for those on social media, please include our handle here at the Hall of Fame, which is @ProFootballHOF, and then include the hashtag HOF values, so HOF values. So with that, I'm pretty much done, because for this program, the less I talk, the better. So we're gonna leave as much time as we can for our featured speaker, Mr. Willie Lanier. I will give him a brief intro. I'm gonna play a little video bio to give you a glimpse into what his career looked like on the field for the Kansas State Chiefs, and give you a little idea into the days on the field. So with that, I'm gonna put my screen back up. Hang with me here if I can get this to cooperate with me. And this will be a brief look into, as I stated, the on-field career of Mr. Willie Lanier, and then we'll focus on the off the field as we get into our discussion. All right, and with that, if we could all please at once, we're going to go ahead and unmute our microphones, and I will do that here for you. We'll all unmute and give one big loud round of applause for Pro Football Hall of Famer in gold jacket, Mr. Willie Lanier. All right, and Mr. Lanier, I will turn the program over to you if you have any opening remarks for our students and teachers today. I will, like I said, I'll hand it over to you, and the floor is yours, sir.
Of the Hall of Fame series, and this is an outreach by the Pro Football Hall of Fame to be able to offer to all of you an opportunity to get an idea of what we do at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What it takes to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame is evidenced by the 7 individuals that you saw on the previous screen, and therefore what you saw of me in a playing standpoint many years ago. This is always special for me to realize and appreciate where I stand in the history of pro football, the whole meaning of what it is to play a sport, to play it well, to have all those virtues that were spoken about, and how at certain points in times, all of us, the men that you saw, were the same place that you are, sitting in a high school, wondering what you might be in your future, trying to determine what your goals and objectives could be. College, the outcome from that could lead to your playing a sport and maybe playing it well enough to be able to, if it is, be in a Pro Football Hall of Fame. But then to add to that from an academic standpoint, all of the different things that I know I have done, and I will share some of those things with you so that you could expand your vision, expand your view from wherever it is, to let yourself not just see a sport, but to see the world, to see an unlimited view and vision of what things you could achieve. I'll touch on some of those things in my life and let you understand how that's the way I lived then as well as now. So watching the film that you just saw and the 7 men that were inducted this past August in Canton, Ohio, this is my 29th year at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I was inducted in 1986. There have been 295 men inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in this 96-year history. I am the 131st of that 295. The reality is that it's a very small group who played the game of football in this country, the millions that might have played over time, and those who were able to go into the pros is a very small number. Those of us who are there appreciate and respect all the things that it takes to be someone in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But we want you all to understand that that's not the full message, that's a part of the message. It's inspiring for me to stand and look and talk and listen as you have, to see those busts that are in that place in Canton, Ohio. Because long after I'm gone and everyone else who is alive and who's played happens to be gone, that will still stand as a testament for our families, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, that there were things that we had done from an athletic standpoint that was at such a high level that it was able to be in bronze in Canton, Ohio. But the broader view happens to be for those of you who are in high school, those of you who have intellectual curiosity, which is the main thing that you must have, to think of what things you might do, things you might achieve. And sport is only a small subset of that. It's not one that I define myself as, quote, a football player, because football is not what I was interested in doing. I happen to have been a walk-on at Morgan State. I sold myself to the coach that I wanted to attend that particular school. I was able to have my degree in business administration in 4 years. I did not have an objective of playing pro football when I went there, but God gifted me with the skills to understand how to participate in the sport, how to be more broad, and how to really achieve things that were more important to me than just playing. So with that being said, I, as an example, graduated on time at Morgan State, started an MBA program at the University of Missouri in Kansas City in 1967. Had a head injury, didn't complete that particular start, but have done other graduate level work and still have relationships that go on and extend from those periods of time. I've been in the investment business, licensed in the securities industry for a number of years. I have interest in a firm in Richmond that manages assets and is a wealth management company, but also have understanding and relationships in many different companies. And at one point was chairman and CEO of an automotive logistics company up in the state of Michigan. So the extensive part of my resume happens to involve sport, but the main part is not that which is sport. One of the great things that I feel happy about is that God granted me the ability to live to be here today because I was 70 years of age on August 21st. And with a lot of the men who played sport, and many times there are subjects and stories about some who have unfortunate illnesses and replacements of joints and different types of issues. I don't have any of that. And I think that's one of the points that I make to you, for you to think through your life, your potential future, and things that you want to achieve. And think about how to take care of yourself at all times each day, to give yourself an opportunity to benefit yourself, your family, your grandchildren, in a way that you can do those positive things with them and be a part of their life and their future. So those are the kind of comments that I start off with you today. Have an opportunity for you to ask questions, and I can offer many different points of reference. I'll go back and add a couple of points to that. The NFL in 1969 to 70 started a NFL Man of the Year award. I happen to have been the first minority to win that award for the league. Also, with a little history, happened to have been the first African American to be a middle linebacker in the history of pro football. So there are different touch points that are a significant part of my presence here. I attended high school at Maggie Walker many years ago, when the only two high schools that African Americans or blacks could attend in Richmond happened to have been Maggie Walker and Armstrong. So the expansive view of being here at Huguenot, as an example, this could not have been the case when I was in high school. George, with any of these other schools you think about. So the breadth that has occurred over time is immense, and the opportunity for me to be here is something that I take great responsibility and happiness to be here. So I guess what we would do now is possibly have questions that would come from the individuals who are watching this program.
Perfect. And thank you, Mr. Lanier, for those comments. We do appreciate your time and understand the historical significance of connections in moments like this. So we thank you for that. But our first question is going to actually come from the students there in front of you. They're at Huguenot High School. So if we have a student there that can kick off our question and answer portion.
Yes, ma'am.
Out of the those things of character, which two do you believe are the most important?
Out of the what of character?
Come up here to address the scene.
Okay, so those gold standards of character were the ones we talked about earlier, Mr. Lanier. It'd be commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence.
Can she re-ask her question, Mike, so people can see her?
Yeah, I believe the question was which one of those is most important?
She was asking if she could come and ask the question again for the rest of the students who are watching.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Out of the gold standards of character, which two do you believe are the most important to your success and why?
Perfect.
Mike, you were speaking about intensity and courage, I believe, as
integrity and courage.
Integrity and courage. So out of those five, integrity and courage are the two that I think of the most, because integrity attempts to protect the decisions that you constantly make at all times. the ability to say no to many things that can be injurious to you at the moment and in the future. And that becomes something that is a constant on a daily basis as you live your life. And then being able to always have the courage. And that comes from the reality that those around you, your peers, people that you are comfortable with, people that who are offering you instruction, you have to have the courage to say no at many times and be very convincing in the way you do that.
Very good. All right, we'll go out then to see, was it George Wythe High School out there, and you guys will have our second question of the day. If we have a student come up there in front of the camera and ask a question of Mr. Lanier. All right. You have any questions there from George Wythe?
George Wythe, Mike. So
George Wythe. My apologies. I'm not from Richmond. I don't know the area, so bear with me. So, all right. Well, looks like we don't have any questions there from that school. So we're gonna go on ahead and move on to John Marshall. If we have a question there at John Marshall of our Hall of Famer.
Well, the thing that I would say to all of you, one thing that you can't be is shy. And the most important thing that all of you have to understand that you need to do is to form questions to ask. You have someone who can help assist you in the future in many places you might want to go. I'll make a quick point here. I've endowed a chair at my college, Morgan State College, that we go live November 13th. And it's the chair that's on business ethics. But the point is, I'm someone who knows people around the world that can help you get a job. I'm someone who many years ago provided $500,000 in scholarship tuition to public school students. Point, to know me helps you. But to do that, you have to be inquisitive, you have to ask questions, you have to be aggressive about the process and constantly engage whatever goes on to make yourself known to who is there who can benefit you in the future. I don't stop by saying what I'm saying. I do the same thing myself every day that God gives me, because that's the responsibility that I have. I share that with you. So try to take advantage of the time that we have to spend together and let yourself become known so that you can be helped in your future by just making a phone call, letting me know that you were here, you watched this, and if anything that I can do to assist you, I will.
Perfect. And we did have a couple of questions submitted prior to the program from our school. So what I'll do, if you don't mind, Mr. I'll just read one of our questions that we did have submitted by John Marshall. And that first question is, what are your thoughts about raw talent versus discipline?
The thoughts about raw talent versus discipline. First, you always have to have discipline. And discipline gives you the responsibility for yourself, the gifts that God has given you with a sound mind, a sound body, to be able to present all the things that you need to do on a daily basis. So it is one that discipline is always the key. And what was the other point?
Raw talent versus discipline.
Raw talent that is not formed clearly can have a way of causing someone to think that things are easier than they are. Having the raw talent is wonderful. Not understanding how to utilize it, being respectful of those who offer the insight as to how to mold it, believing that that by itself will take you many places, there's a limit. All of us need to be taught, all of us need to be humble, all of us need to understand that there are others who are trying to assist us to go places they have not been. And just because one might have raw talent, that in itself, in my view, over my life and journey, I haven't seen that to be sufficient to get anybody where they felt was a higher level of performance academically, athletically, or however else you want to define them.
All right, so we're going to go out then next to Thomas Jefferson High School. I see we have some students sitting there, even the gentleman in the tie. I know Mr. Lanier appreciates that. So if we have a question for our Hall of Famer, you guys are up.
My name is Tia. What attributes were you able to use from your high school playing days at the next level?
The attributes that I was able to use from my playing days in high school was that at Maggie Walker, we had a rigorous academic program that was college preparatory in nature that allowed for people to constantly have high inquisitiveness and a thirst for knowledge. It's not just the knowledge that the textbook that the teacher gives you, but a thirst for a broad breadth of knowledge and constantly trying to absorb things locally, nationally, and internationally. Fortunately, I had the benefit of having been a newspaper carrier when I was a youngster. And I not only then carried them, but I started to read newspapers all the time. And that allowed me to have a broad general knowledge base that assisted me in doing many things as it does today. So I still read and go through probably 5 papers a day. I started with 2 at the house, 2 downtown, 1 in the afternoon. And it's something that I've done my entire life. And the thing that happens is that your inquisitiveness, your thirst for knowledge, your thirst for knowing more tomorrow than you knew yesterday can serve you over time much more than you can even imagine. So it's one of constantly having a reach, and there were people around us who were constantly trying to say the same thing, that that's what you're trying to do while you are in an education environment. You're trying to do those things yourself that enhances what others are trying to do for you.
Very good. All right, our next question then is going to come from Armstrong. If we have a student there that would please ask a question of Mr. Lanier.
Hello.
Hello.
If you could tell your younger self something, what would it be?
I couldn't hear that.
If you could tell your younger self something, what would it be?
If I could tell my younger self something, what would it be? Looking back, I would probably tell myself to try to be a little bit more humble, knowing that the odds of that happening were almost 0.
Very, very good. That may be one of my favorite answers of this series, Mr. That was good. So, all right, that's one full loop. So we're gonna go right back out to the live audience there in front of you at Huguenot. If we have another question of Mr. Lanier.
Right here. Just a moment. Yes, sir.
As high school athletes, which standards would you consider to be the best to build upon?
The standards that as a high school athlete to build upon, always remember that academics happens to be first, athletics happens to be second. There's no degree you get from high school in athletics. There's no degree you get from college in a sport. The academics are 1, the athletics are 2, and being responsive to understanding that at all times gives you an opportunity in the future that it becomes less problematic when that is appreciated. So it becomes one that all of us who have been involved in sport, and I think a responsibility to others, games are important, your complete future has to be more important. Okay.
Perfect. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and read a question we have from George With. Am I pronouncing that right, Mr. Lanier?
Yes, sir, you did.
George With. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read one that we had pre-submitted from those students there. And it's, can you share one of your biggest mistakes and what you learned from it?
And that's interesting. One of my biggest mistakes, and that probably goes back, and I can only go so far with this because I signed a confidentiality agreement with the federal court up in Michigan. And that was a very large business deal that I was involved with in the last 4 years that I thought other individuals would have the kind of integrity and honor and character that we're talking about here. And unfortunately, that wasn't quite the case. Therefore, I spent about 2 3/4 years engaged in a suit in federal court up in Michigan. So the reality is that individuals can disappoint, but you must maintain your character, your belief, your involvement, your perseverance to continue to move forward. And as was stated in some of the things earlier, there can be a lot of disappointments for all of you as you go through your life, but you have to be able to balance it, have the faith that comes from your religious background, be able to have the perseverance that allows you to continue to go forward, because regardless of what things occur, others who might disappoint, your expectations of them might not quite be what occurs. You still have the responsibility to achieve, take advantage of who you are and where you are, and keep striving for tomorrow so that those who are part of your legacy can benefit from those efforts that you happen to have been involved. So.
Very good. Very good. So let's go out one more time to John Marshall. See if we have any students out there that have maybe gotten over their shyness and want to ask a question of Mr. Lanier.
What motivates you the most to drive forward in life?
What motivates me the most? Having grown up in America and having realized that our country has had a struggle at times with race and separation, and having been in high school at the time that the Brown versus Board of Education, which allowed for separate but equal to not be constitutional, I always remember that in Prince Edward County, 60 miles from Richmond, those schools were shut and closed from 1959 to 1964. I was already out of high school and in college. And individuals who looked like us, African American, did not have a way to go to school in that county because of race and those kind of issues. So as I think about that, and I think about my parents, grandparents, and I think about the challenges that have been a part of all of our journeys then as well as now at times, that motivation is to continue to take advantage of opportunities in front of me, utilize the gifts that God has given, be diligent in trying to establish a model to do things in a right way. The same way, as an example, as you see me here today, this is the way I dress 7 days a week. And it's a part of my core because I'm trying to present to others the way you should look as you go forward for someone to do business with you, for someone to have an opportunity to allow you to be engaged in a better way. And I think all of us have to then take a look at ourselves, look in the mirror, ask yourself, are you doing those things every day that you need to be more progressive, to be more proactive, doing those things in school, assisting some of your classmates who might drift a little bit, and if you have the courage to say to them, I don't think that's the way you want to continue going, because your future could be compromised by that. So all of us help one another by how we present ourselves, and I think that is the full legacy of things that I do previous and now and in the future.
Very good. All right, we're gonna go back out then to Thomas Jefferson. If we could have a student there ask our next question.
My name is Robert Allen IV. What do you see as the biggest stumbling block for success for athletes in this 21st century?
The biggest stumbling block for athletes in the 21st century?
Yes, sir.
I think the biggest, this is cool, you have a bow tie, I kind of like that. I think the biggest stumbling block is when anyone decides to define themselves as less than a full person. Because you play a game on Monday, Saturday, Sunday, whether you're paid or not, that is not who you are. You are a person gifted by God with a name given to you by your parents that has all of these unique skills and abilities. And with that, what you're doing is trying to say, wait a minute, I'm all of that. I'm all of these things. I want to have an opportunity to be as much as I can. And being as much as I can involves as broad a breadth as you can imagine. You should be inquisitive toward, I would say, any and everything. And that I'm being very serious about. You need to find what it is that engages you fully. And if it's multiple things, then it needs to be multiple things. If it's a direction that you're going that others around you haven't gone, that's fine. Because you are trying to be who you are and the gifts that you have and have it come to light, have it excite you. My feeling is that that's the driver. So as of today, at my age, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm excited about today and tomorrow. The time that I take to look back is limited. It's today and tomorrow. continuing to go forward. And that is the opportunity that I think that you all should have. And the breadth of things that are available to you is tremendously much more broad than it was at the time that I was sitting in the same seats that you were when I went through high school in the city from 1960 to 63. But it's one of just realizing that the scale and opportunity is immense. There are people that I could put a number of you in contact with. Let's say if you had an engineering view and there was somewhere else in the world you might want to work. Well, there's someone that I had attend the Super Bowl with me in Phoenix. He brought his 15-year-old son, 12-year-old son, and he happens to own businesses all around the world. And those businesses require engineers and people of skill and ability to be able to perform. Well, we have a business relationship. Being able to point out others that I know in Richmond who have the skill and ability to come out of college and they're interested in having that interview. We can do that. I can make that happen. But you must understand that you must do the work required to be in position at the time to make it happen.
We did a program, I believe it was with Marv Levy, Mr. Lanier, and he said, you know, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And it's kind of what you were talking about there. Some may say that you get put in a situation, maybe luck, but it's really when you were prepared for an opportunity that presented itself. And it's not even the preparation, it's the unique preparation that can really set yourself up for success in any aspect.
Well, that's true.
Our next question is going to come from Armstrong. If we could have a student there come up to the camera.
Hello. Which one of your teammates did you learn the most from?
Which one of my teammates did I learn the most from? That teammate happened to be a person named Jim Lynch, who was a linebacker who also came in the same year that I was drafted. We were both drafted in the second round. Jim was the 48th player drafted. I was the 50th. We were both coming in. The team was looking for a middle linebacker. Jim attended Notre Dame University. I attended historically black college, Morgan State. What I learned from Jim was the humility of a competitor. Because even though he was a Maxwell Trophy winner, the All-American from Notre Dame, the more well-known performer, I was the kid from historically black college at Morgan State. I became the one who won the position. I quote, beat him out for the position. And it was always interesting to me as he and I became great friends, we were roommates for 8 years, that it didn't seem to bother him that I was deemed better. So having a chance years later, going to Notre Dame with him to attend the Notre Dame game, I had a chance to see that college and see how that college has a core that presents to its students an understanding of how to balance your life, balance who you are, what you do, and engage others who are equal or better, and still be comfortable and confident in yourself. So his was a relationship that I cherished because he was someone, and I wasn't used to being around whites because I grew up in a segregated environment, but he and I struck off a lifelong relationship. And as I said, for 8 years we roomed together, and it happens to be that our birthdays are 1 week apart. So that was the person that fit that particular question.
Great. Our next question is going to come from that live audience there again. If we have another student that'll come up there to the podium.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay.
How important is your character as a young person that follows you as an adult?
Do that again.
How important is your character as a young person that follows you as an adult?
Okay. As the question was, how is it important as a young person and your character that follows you as an adult? You are some of all that you are. And being a sum of all that you are at all times. And people can see what you're doing, people cannot see what you're doing. And obviously we know that all of us are not perfect, but you're constantly trying to be better. You're constantly trying to improve who you are at all times. And it can be a struggle. But the reality is that you're building a base of who you are. I've been invited to the White House a number of times in my life. I have shaken the hand of 4 of the 44 presidents, and I've been around 5 of the 44. One thing that occurs if you're invited to the White House, there's something called a background check that is done. And if for whatever reason your character didn't allow you over any long period of time to do those things in the kind of way that would allow comfort of your presence, then you're not invited. But that's a point of reference that it is over a long period of time, continually trying to do all those things that are right, just, decent, and honorable, and positioning yourself for future opportunities that will have a litmus test that when you're younger you might not have thought about, but can be sitting out there. And for those who pass it, they continue to go forward. Those who don't end up missing certain opportunities.
Great. I'll go ahead and interject another question from George With, and I think this is a great question. It's what encouragement or advice can you offer to female athletes who are often faced with stereotypes and other barriers?
Well, I think going back from a female athlete standpoint, Title IX, and I can do this with the glass ceiling or the barriers from being minority, and the race and ethnicity tend to be somewhat tied together. Because someone is viewed by others as maybe not being as equal to them, that person continues to have to respond in a positive, progressive way, realizing that their opportunity each day, they own it. Maintain a positive view regardless of the circumstance, and continue to reach. I think the reality is that you don't want to reach a point where you become convinced that it's not worth your next step, that all of the stress is not beneficial to you. And it could be some dark moments at times, some quiet moments where you go sit by yourself and question your own resolve. But the reality is that yours must be met by a continuing view of the future, and you are the one who has to make your future secure. You're the one that has to make you be viewed better than someone next to you or someone outside of you for that next opportunity, next job, next college opportunity, and be able to present yourself in that way. So even though that could be a question, it's one that society over time continues to help resolve, but each person's step, each person's determination. And I'll just use myself in that same way from an athletic standpoint, because there were no other, at that time, black middle linebackers playing professional football. Once I had the opportunity, that didn't stop me, and I was able to go to the Hall of Fame. So the point could be that the same thing from a woman's standpoint, because others did not allow, does not mean the skill and ability is not there, and to be able to perform equally at a high level would not be there also.
All right. And my apologies to other schools, but I do see we have a student now sitting in front of the camera there out at George With, so I want to make sure we give them an option to the ability to interact with us. So we're going to take another question there from George With if we have.
As a student from an inner city school, what advice will you give to student athletes who want to further their career?
Well, I appreciate the point in terms of a student from an inner city school, and the question becomes, you have to always use where you are as your platform for tomorrow, not to allow it being an inner city school, a income circumstance or family circumstance, or all of those words that can be used to detract from the view that you are equal to anybody else who lives on this planet. You're equal in driving your own opportunity in the future, because that's what you have the ability to do. The understanding is that it's one of not allowing yourself to define where you are as you. It's where you're going and how you manage that which will define your future. None of us have control at different points in time of a particular circumstance, and I understand that all very clearly. So you in the inner city are others in inner cities all across this country. Or it could be said, you take a look at the world and you take a look at some of the challenges going on with others who are on journeys across the world with titles that might deem it as immigrant, who might be on a vessel somewhere out at sea trying to get to land to have opportunity in the future. You look at the parallel from that reality, and individuals keep moving forward, trying to reach and seek a better place. It becomes the same thing. It might be one where someone is in a city now, grows up there, but they go on to achieve great things because they can. And many from those environments do that. We, at that point in time, as I spoke earlier, we lived in, quote, the inner city, and we were sort of captured in there. We only were able to go to Armstrong and Maggie Walker. You weren't out in the suburbs. You weren't out at the newer facilities. This facility that I'm standing in, Huguenot High School, there were big, beautiful facilities out in the suburbs of the city many years ago also. Even though we didn't have the access to them, we made sure that we took advantage of where we were to prepare ourselves going forward to have future outcomes that would be better.
All right, we're gonna go then out to John Marshall. If we have a student there with a question, please.
As student athletes, what's some steps that we could take towards our plan B if our plan A doesn't work?
Well, I think the point in terms of being the student athlete, I like to say that the student should be a lowercase, the student should be the uppercase, the athlete should be the lowercase. So there always should be a plan B. There can never be a time that there's not a plan B. My plan going to Morgan State was to get my degree on time, which is what I did. But I also saw that in my second year as a sophomore, I had a knee injury to my left knee, and I didn't play for 3/4 of that year. So I realized that at any point in time, based on the injury, this thing could end. So I made sure I was able to get my degree on time. Part of my history, and I'm told that there's some article in Sports Illustrated this week that speaks about me, so any of you who might get Sports Illustrated, if you read it, you'll see what I'm going to talk about now, because my first year in the National Football League, I had a severe concussion, which was diagnosed as a previously undiagnosed subdural hematoma. And what that means is that with a concussion in the first season, I made a tackle a week earlier. I was never concussed, not unconscious or whatever, but there was a small tear of a blood vessel. So that next week, we're playing the game in Kansas City. I collapsed and I'm unconscious for 2 hours. So I then have to go to Mayo Clinic for all the neurological tests. I asked the Mayo Clinic physician, can I have an unequivocal clean bill of health? He said no, because I have survived. So I had to make a decision that if I play football again, I have to figure out how to play the game 90% safe, or I never would have played again. Well, I was able to, with God's grace, figure out how to do that. And by being able to do that, I played another 10 years. I have nothing wrong with having played, but it caused an understanding of an event that you cannot depend on your body and its survivability for your full long-term outcome. There must be a plan B, and it should be called plan A, and the B would be that which is dealt with from an athletic standpoint.
All right, Thomas Jefferson then. We're going to go back out to there.
My name is Cameron, and if you could only pick one characteristic of a champion, what would it be?
One characteristic of a champion, what would it be? I would say determination. And determination because as you are trying to be better, the time it takes to prepare to be better requires determination. If it's academic, it means study halls and other periods of time and constant study, constant absorption of data to prepare. If it's athletic, it means the same thing. If I'm here today in this city, and there might be others in the United States I'm competing against, what am I going to do today and be determined to do it to be equal to what they are doing at the same time? So with that determination, athletically, academically, because you're competing against people that you can't see. You're competing against people who have a view of the future that might be different from yours. Some might have a worldview that's different from yours, but as the future goes on, you will find that your opportunity for jobs can be challenged by people from around the world. So your responsibility is to be determined to make sure that you fight the tendency to not do the next day. The tendency to put it off. You fight that, and you do. And you continue to be determined to try to prepare for an outcome that can be beneficial to you.
All right, Armstrong, then you guys are going to have our next question. We have a
Hello, but what are some of the unexpected or pleasant surprises you have had as a pro athlete?
Do that again.
What are some of the unexpected or pleasant surprises you have had as a pro athlete?
For some reason.
The question was, Mr. Lanier, what are some unexpected outcomes or surprises that you've had as a pro athlete?
Well, one of the things that I found was that having gone to an historically black college and being determined in the way that I approach college from an academic standpoint, as I approach playing a sport from an athletic standpoint, that my knowledge and my approach was equal to anybody that I came in contact with. And that it was more equal maybe than others because they apparently were not quite as determined as I was to try to truly understand how do you approach a business model that had not embraced others who look like you, but you were able to have the confidence and determination that it didn't matter, and you were going to be very successful within that environment. And not from what could be deemed a cocky standpoint or an overtly confident, but one of being pragmatic and appreciating that your background was sufficient to offer you the opportunity to take broad steps that could be very successful for you.
Perfect. We're going to be, there's another full rotation. We'll be right back with the live audience there at Huguenot if we have another student there.
Okay, yes, there's a gentleman about to come to the floor.
Perfect.
To raise a question. How are you, sir?
Being a college player and an NFL player, what did you see? What did you see as the main difference in transition?
The question was in terms of the transition from being a college athlete to a professional athlete, what was the major difference? The major difference was that you didn't have to spend the time on academic pursuits. But the reality for myself was that spending time with the academic pursuits, having the balance, always made us better. So the Kansas City Chiefs won the 4th Super Bowl, and I was part of that. The Super Bowl teams were in Kansas City 2 weeks ago, and all of us were there. The point was that the only time that team won was when they had young men who had graduated from college, who had degrees, who were more mature, who didn't define themselves always as being athletes, and that was why we won. Because I would say this to you from an athletic standpoint, any of you who are still playing sport. In the 3rd and 4th quarter, your character comes out when the pressure is on as to how well you play. And when that happens, you have to have the ability to perform at a level under stress with purpose and be able to go forward in a positive way. I'll say this because of the athletic view of the question. I played 11 years in the National Football League. I had 5 penalties. And I had 5 penalties because I don't allow that to be a part of my existence. So if you played next to me and you had more than that, then we have problems. So in the same way, if you're trying to have excellence in your classroom, you want to raise it to such a high level that no one can take away from you a question of confidence of how good you are. So no one told me to do that, but I understood if I'm coming into a new environment, how do I do something that's better than others? So I decided, if I remove penalties from my resume, things have to be better. I was at a Cincinnati-Baltimore game on Sunday. There was a player for the Baltimore Ravens, number 38. He had 3 penalties in the first half. I had to cut him at halftime. Okay, next question.
I think we have maybe time for one more question here. So we're going to go back out to, let's go to Thomas Jefferson and see if we have a good question to end our program on today.
My name's Nick. Has hard work been replaced by shortcuts in the 21st century athletes?
Is hard work, what about 21st century athletes?
The question was, Mr. Lanier, has hard work been replaced by shortcuts in the 21st century athlete?
Maybe the 21st century athlete thinks it might be replaced, but it hasn't. You can look at the beginning of the NFL season, and you could see at times that play is not as crisp as it needs to be. Many of the rule changes with the Player Association and the league causes preparation to not be as arduous as it was at the time that people from my era played. The quality of the game that we played tended to be better early. Now, theirs might come to that point mid-season and late, but the early part of the season is where you see performances from my vantage point that are not at that kind of quality that I would like to see it. And I think many times that comes from the preparation. The preparation is not as arduous, it is not as stern, and therefore in the same way all of you do anything, your preparation is what allows you to be in position to have a positive outcome. So I thank you all for having me with you today. I'm hopeful that your futures go forward in many positive ways. And if you need to reach out to me, I'll be more than happy to help. Anything I can do for you, I would do. Thank you.
Those were some great questions for everyone, and we appreciate the answers from you, Mr. Lanier. So, like I said, that was our last question, but I would like to leave 3-4 minutes for any closing remarks you may have, sir, as to something you were either hoping we would touch on today that we haven't, or something that you would just like to reiterate to leave the students with.
I think that I would take this ring that I wear, and that's a Pro Football Hall of Fame ring. And the point is that I live in your community. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. But I have reference to the world of professional sport. I happen to be a trustee of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I happen to be on the safety committee with the National Football League. So all the different changes that have occurred in the last 5 years came because of my voice being in a room with the commissioner, John Madden, Ronnie Lott, and others, trying to make it better for the men who play sport today at the league level, but for all of you who play now. We are trying to make it better for you in the future in work that we do. There's a group called the Pro Player Care Foundation, which assists former players in fiscal issues and opportunities to have assistance in different ways. And I'm also on that. So I'm very much still tied to the essence and fabric of the sport. I'm involved in different business situations that I enjoy. But the point is that for those of you who are here, I'm in the Richmond area. And being in the Richmond area, if there is or are questions that you might have at a particular point in time, you talk to your school, they can get in touch with me, and I have a very comfortable outreach in terms of assisting anyone who takes the time and energy to ask. So I would say to you, always think about the question that you need to ask wherever you are. It's the question that you ask that will get you the answer, that can help you with the next question. So be more studious about how you study questions. I sit in rooms with billionaires. I've sat in rooms with presidents. I have a picture at my home having met Richard M. Nixon at the White House in 1972. It was the first that I'd met. And President Ford in Charlottesville a number of years later. All of these different points are things that someone in the same midst of where you are has been able to do. So my point is that if I've been able to do that with historical realities not being quite what they are now for you, look at it as a target. Look at the things that where you are now and what things you might be able to achieve. Look at how we took technology today. I came over to Huguenot High School and I stood in a room and reached all of you. As was said by Mike, they were over in Moscow, Russia, doing the same thing most recently. So the world is yours. Think about it, view it, reach for it. And if you need a little bit more confidence, come talk to some of us being the extension into the hall, and a lot of the young men that you saw who were on earlier. And you would be surprised at where your reach from today can take you with a question, and maybe your presence there can come from being assertive about today. So those are the comments that I finished with.
Perfect. And for any of those students that would choose to take that initiative to follow Mr. Lanier, please, teachers, direct those to us, and we'll be more than happy to get you the contact information, make sure those make their way towards Mr. Lanier. So at that point, if we could all, I'm going to unmute everyone's microphone. We just give one big Hall of Fame round of applause and a thank you to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Ghost Rockers. Perfect. And Mr. Lanier, we thank you here in Canton. Thank you from David Baker, our executive staff on down. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your knowledge and experience and taking the time to share that with our students today. So thank you from here in your second home, and you're always welcome back.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right,
thank you. And that will officially close our program today. So thank you to all of our teachers and students. We appreciate the attention and due diligence.